Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Yvonne, Justin, Cote!
I grew up on an Arabian horse farm in the middle of nowhere, gay Quebec, where everyone was French. So that was a little bit of a mouthful, and there's more to come there. Jehovah's Witnesses, for decades, predicted that in 1975 the world was going to come to an end. I was born in 1970. All I had to do was be good for 5 years, and I was going to have eternal life. One night, we're coming back from a meeting, and I'm extremely angry. And my family knows that I'm angry because I'm not singing the words to my favorite song, which turns out is a tampon commercial. That's why everyone laughed in the car every time I sang it. So, my dad's like, "Why are you upset?" And I said, "Well, because they said at the meeting that a man is not allowed to lie with another man, and you've been making me sleep with my brother." Which sucks for him because I peed the bed till I was 11. And so my dad, because Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to lie, explained to me the difference in between lying with a man and laying with a man. And at the end of it, I was like, oh man, I'm in so much trouble because I want to do a lot of both. Just really not with my brother again. So we had a horse farm, Arabian, beautiful horses, and we had a riding school. We had, we gave lessons. We did trail riding. We were also breeders. We had this magnificent stallion named Jay, this beautiful black stallion. So every spring, breeding season was like crazy. So we'd constantly have mares coming through, and there was one specific mare. This would happen with a few mares, but this one specific mare, her name is Mignon, which means large pussy. And she was the ugliest horse you've ever seen, but she was so sweet. Poor thing wasn't blessed. She was blessed with a crooked vagina. So what would happen is when the stud would go to mount her, sometimes he couldn't get it in. And you see, my grandmother had taught me something when I was very young. She says, be quiet, be stealth, listen, and then you can use it later. Well, my mom, because I was such a sneaky little bugger, figured maybe I could help out. So, my job as a 6-year-old gay boy was to put a couple of baggies, sandwich bags on my hands and run up while he wasn't looking and put the penis in. And those things explode. You have got to get it in there and get the hell out of the way. To this day, I can still avoid anything coming at my face. If I choose to. On that day, there was a beautiful young man that was there. His name was Jean. I'd caught his eye, and even though I was quite young, I was like, oh. I didn't see him again for a while, but I did learn that I wanted to explore more sexuality. And I think when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I walked in, my parents had met this other couple, and that they had become quite friendly with, going door to door. And they were all so into horses and whatnot, and they had kids that were the same age as my older brother and sister. Well, I caught my older brother and sister with the older brother and sister there, playing together in the closet. Naked, naked, naked fun. was like, you guys aren't allowed to do that. I won't tell if you let me play. So they did. So I got to play with the one boy, and I was just kind of obsessed with it. That all I wanted to do was go play doctor. And so at one point he's like, you can't stick your tongue up my bum as far as your brother can. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm trying. Trying the best I can. Some people you just can't please. I'm like, there's 3 other people in this friggin' closet, and all you can do is complain about that. Well, one night we heard Auntie coming up the stairs. And I'm like, instead of like pulling up our pants, they're like, shh. Well, that was dumb because she opened the closet and we all have our pants down. It was the first time I actually got the strap. And I had more fear of actually getting it than when I actually got it. I was like, my dad didn't even hit us that hard. Nonetheless, I did throw all of his belts behind the dryer. He literally found them when I was like in my 20s. Like, I had no idea how that happened. So from then, I continued to explore my sexuality with, friends from school and whatnot. I joined sports only to be able to take showers. And Jean, this young man, eventually came back to the farm, and he was there to learn everything about horses. He was going to also become a breeder. He wanted to teach. He wanted to do all this stuff, and he would tease me, but the teasing eventually evolved into flirting. And at the time, I behaved like a lot older than I was. My brother had failed a grade and I had jumped a grade, so I kind of behaved more like I was 16 or 17, and he behaved more like he was 12 or 13, which was my age. And so Jean would come over sometimes when my mom wasn't there, and he would let me wash his car, but while I was washing his car, he'd be sitting there and kind of not really, but exposing himself, and he would let me stare. And I swear to God, I don't know how many times I stared, and then I ran to the house, wanked on the stucco wall, and ran back. I could do that in seconds. It's just like... So my obsession with him went on for quite a while, and I kept telling him, how old I was, and talked about my girlfriend and this and that, and then I had a plan. I was obsessed with, I wanted to do this guy. So my plan was, I was gonna wait, I was gonna get him in the barn alone, and then I was gonna make things happen, and I literally went through this so many times. So finally, one night, my mother has a talk, so that means she's gonna be going to the meeting. I said I wasn't feeling that well, but I'd wrap up at the barn. I was gonna wrap up at the barn with Jean, because he was taking a lesson. I looked in the calendar. So there's me and Jean in the barn. I go and I close both doors, because I know if I hear someone coming to pull up my pants. Not to just go, shh. So I've got both doors closed. I'm like, I am so horny, it's ridiculous. I'm like, my face is brushed, I'm panicked, I'm breathing hard, and I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen? I can do this. And then I got a hold of myself, and I went in the box stall next door to him, and I started petting my horse, Natasha, and he was petting Lady. And then I'm like, yeah, my girlfriend, she hasn't been giving me blowjobs lately, and I'm super horny. Being all casual and so he goes, oh yeah. He goes, yeah, my girlfriend either. And I'm like, oh. So I would gladly give a blowjob to get one. I'm just listening for the other side of the box stall. And he's like, me too. I was like, oh my God, I dreamed of this so many times. It's literally like that porn film where you'd never get past that part, right? So I'm like, I am not leaving dead moments. I am not leaving laughs, nothing. I'm going straight into that box stall, which I did. He was on one side of Lady, I was on the other. So he was brushing and I was brushing. And then we kind of did this motion at the same time. Go and grab each other's penises. His was immense. It was, I can't even explain it. Like, so I'm fiddling around trying to get it out of the, that's just, no, help me. So he does, so he gets it out, and I just give it like one stroke, and it explodes. Obviously, the one time I didn't want to get out of the way, still did, force of habit. And then he comes to do me, but I was so excited and so sensitive that it just tickled. It was completely unpleasant. So I'm like, oh, are you serious? So I'm like, okay, no. So we'll do this another time, maybe tomorrow. So we have a plan. He leaves the barn first. I leave the barn right after. And as he gets into his car, I'm like, have a great night. I'm going to think about you when I wink. And he turns around and he looks down and goes, giddy up. And then I realized the kitchen window's open and Mom is still there. But she wasn't a good listener at the best of times, so pretty sure she would have understood what that was. So life continued on, and at one point, he comes over, and it turned out it was my birthday. Now, we never celebrated birthdays, so it really wasn't a big bother to me. But he says, oh, so you're finally legal. And my mother goes, no, he's 14. At which his face turned every color. He was furious. He was angry. Like, and he bolted. He just left. So after a week, he didn't come over. I called him. So he's like, okay, we need to talk. So he comes over and we're talking. And he's like, listen, I can't do this. I absolutely cannot do this. And I said, well, if you stop, I'm going to tell. Piece of shit. Grandma taught me everything. So poor guy, he kept coming around, but eventually it kind of dwindled off. And of course I didn't tell. I didn't want everyone to know that I was, looking for it. And then life went on. But the one thing that I had learned was that I didn't want to be like him. I didn't want to be out of the closet. I didn't want to be in the closet. I wanted to be out. I wanted to be able to have a proper relationship, which probably meant I would have to leave the farm. So eventually I did do all that stuff. I've had 3 gay marriages. It's 3. It hasn't even been legal that long. Interestingly enough, my grandmother was the first person I came out to, and she said, if I was to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't be with a man. And then she did this. Anyone knows what that means? Tell me after the show. I come out to my mom, and she's like, is it something I did? I'm like, you made me steer horse penises. Fuck yeah, it's your fault. And she literally was like, have you had sex with women? I'm like, yeah. And it's okay, they didn't like it either. Years go by. I went from being a piece of shit to being somewhat respectable. By the time I was 25, I owned my own restaurant with my partner. I was in my second long-term relationship, and things were amazing. I had always worried about Jean, though, because there's literally, within 10 miles, my father had 15 brothers and sisters. They were there, and at any time, he would have gotten his ass kicked if anybody had found out. And so that fear was created by me. So I always had kind of that guilt. I was like, man, did that guy fear for his life because of me? So one night, in walks Jean into the restaurant with a date or his boyfriend. Doesn't recognize me at all. Sits down, I served them. They were there for 2 hours, no acknowledgement whatsoever. And I was like, fuck you. I was really good. How can you not remember this? Come on. So he gets up and he leaves, and as he leaves, I go, merci beaucoup, bonne fin de soirée. And he turns around and he goes, giddy up.